We need to solidify our idea of what this project is going to be, both in the narrative structure as well as in the concept art. And that's what we're going to start tackling in this video. In the previous video, we came up with a rough idea, a template, a very bulleted sort of breakdown of the entire game. However, I need a lot more structure to that list than I have right now. And I really didn't have any ideas, so I figured why don't we sit down and start creating some concept art or concepting things out. So what you see here is I'm inside of Photoshop, and I'm just drawing with the tablet I have some different configurations for the different layouts. Before it was the repair room and where different objects would be. Now I'm taking a few moments trying to figure out how the entire space will look. And I decide one main component is going to be a bowling lane inside this area, an arcade, maybe a food place, and some sort of bathrooms as well. Now, of course, we need a stock room, maybe an entrance, and of course the repair room in the central area. Now I'm going through and trying to figure out what these different animatronics are going to look like. In this case, this is the orphan animatronic who is going to service the bowling lanes. It's going to be a smaller animatronic, at least in this concept. It's going to ooze oil out of the front of its mouth where it cleans the lanes, and it's kind of the central bad guy in the game. It doesn't look terribly intimidating, but hopefully the idea of it will become more so. Now I'm jumping in, trying to figure out what the cheerleader animatronic is going to look like. So we're going through, just throwing some concepts down. I'm not really happy with any of these yet. Once again, just trying to get some ideas down on paper to get them out of my head to move on to the next thing. So here we've got a standard cheerleader type look. There's really nothing terribly definitive about it. Looks like we've got that Wendy's style hair. I believe I make it red in a minute. And now we're trying out a few different things with the eyes because I'm really not sure how the eyes are going to be. You know, are they sunken in? Are they, do they have a certain shape to them and whatnot? Or do they just look void and vacant like a robot would? They're of course removing one of the eye because when you meet Cheer, she's going to be all messed up. Now this is an interesting one. This has nothing to do with anything that you saw in the last video. This is a different one that I have stuck in my head called Chance. And Chance is not something that's really trying to kill you. Chance is a large, sort of bulky bot that's going to move around the arcade and block your path. And it's got like a roulette wheel on the front of it or whatever. And as it moves that around, it'll give you like a frowny face or happy face. This is another thing. This is the board that you remove from inside the animatronic's head to repair it. Once again, I had an idea of how it's going to slot into it, so I wanted to get that out of my head and drawn down to move on to the next thing. Now I decide maybe I should try storyboarding this. So I make a storyboard template really fast, and I start going through the exact beginning of the game, where, you know, credits roll up, what the title screen might look like, different options there, such as resolution, quality, and settings, and so forth, what makes sense for a game like this, where you go from the beginning of a new game over to the next. And I'm actually not making a lot of progress here. And I decide I either need to concept this out more or I need to sit down and really flesh out that story. And I kind of do both separately. What we're going to look at first, though, is some of the concept work that I try to start pulling forth. And I showed you a little bit, but I have a book called Speed Painting that I'm going to jump into in a little bit that has some ideas that I've never read the book before, so I figure this is a great chance to jump into it and try it out. But before I get to that, this is where I actually get really frustrated because I'm unable to take ideas or come up with anything and, you know, translate them into my hand and into the pen to create interesting different styles. I really don't like anything that I'm doing here. Even though they're, you know, kind of different, I start really making them way different just to try to see if I like anything. I don't like the lips. I don't like the facial structure. I don't like the eyes. So that's what's going to prime me to move forward with this speed painting book. And I go through it pretty much the first two chapters in this week. The first chapter is about taking different images and creating brushes out of them, grayscale brushes, and then using that to be able to composite and create different landscapes, which really doesn't have anything to do with this project, but it's the first part of the book, and I didn't want to just skip around because they might have interesting tips that, you know, lead into the next chapter. So here I'm creating different brushes. They tell you to create 3 different like cloud or whimsical brushes, 3 different background brushes, and then 3 different messy brushes. And once again, I'm trying to do the interior for this animatronic thing, so it kind of makes more sense for the things to be, you know, interior structures or objects that you'd find in the interior. However, unfortunately, that's really not how the book presents the stuff. It's kind of doing more like outside exterior shots in this chapter, so things aren't making a whole lot of sense, but I give it a go anyway. Now I am testing out the different brushes, trying to figure out how to use these appropriately by changing the different parameters inside of Photoshop. just changing their sizing, their spacing, how randomly they're distributed across the screen, and then I just paint with them on the surface. And unfortunately, I would say close to half, if not 75% of the brushes I create are absolute crap. I don't know what I'm doing. The book really leaves it up to you to figure this stuff out. It gives you very loose guidelines, but looking back on how I did this, some of these brushes just don't make sense. Here you can see I'm trying to stack them up, layer them using different levels of opacity and different colorations. Here's a good one that actually works out a lot though, is taking these buildings and masking out a certain part of it. These make for really nice sort of, cities that fade into the distance, very large ones. As you can see here, we can get some ideas on different shapes. Now, this is one that completely doesn't work. This one too, I thought maybe having those different screens and having them overlay might give me some interesting visualizations, endless seas of monitors and screens, but it really just doesn't work out. Now we're working on the messy brushes, and in order to make them more interesting, if the brush itself is just square or circular, it doesn't do much, so I go in there and start making cuts in different parts of it to break up the structure so that when the brush repeats, it has something more interesting. It's not the same repetitive brush over and over and over again. When you combine that with, rotating and angling things in different directions, you get kind of like a mess of steel beams as if buildings collapse or something. Once again, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for the game we're going on, but I'm just trying to follow the book and try to learn how to use these tools to create more ideas and more concept work, because I really feel like we need to get past this initial phase to make sure this game is a success. We had no idea, or I had no idea what the heck I was doing early on, and I think it shows by the fact that we have close to 200 videos now, and I'm only now really focusing down and making sure what I do is proper. Here we got some nuts and bolts. Once again, things that I think would be in a repair room, trying out different overlays and so forth with these, seeing what color does. I go back in, I blend it. You want, at least with the messy one, I find lots of gray values, different values in between it. You don't want it too just black or just white. You want to be able to blend. And unfortunately, I think I'm too close to it at this point, and the idea is I'm reading this book and I'm seeing all these great concepts in the book, and I'm getting frustrated that what I'm producing is not anywhere near that. So now's the time where I decide, okay, let's try actually to create some sort of a scene with this. And here you can see it's just junk. I'm just layering on layering and nothing works out. And then I decided, screw it. We're not going to try the animatronic thing. We're just going to try to make anything that's cohesive so I have some kind of a success. So I start out with these different parts, and once again, it's really random. I'm just looking for shapes at this point. I don't feel terribly creative when I'm doing this either. It just doesn't seem to work right. So I've got this structure on the side, this other structure there. I'm trying these, cloud shapes in the background, but the cloud shapes are just too dense. They're not whimsical enough. And then now I just refresh it and start over again. And now I create some layers, darks in the front, lights in the back as if it's a large scene. Then I add these screens in the front as well. Maybe we've got rows of buildings or something. And now we've got all this trashy metal in the front, like it's an old ruined city. And I don't know what the heck these things are. Maybe an alien invasion, something has taken over the city and it's attacking. Really, we're completely off track for what we're trying to do. But I'm trying to get a success. I'm trying to get something that looks like anything, really, so that I feel like I can use these to move forward. And now it's time for coloration. Just recommend you use a gradient. You could probably take a lot more time than I do, but I just throw down some gradients here and there, blend them over using colorization, and see what happens. And you can get kind of a story from this, I suppose. Yeah, not happy with it. I didn't do anything constructive in this amount of time, but I did learn a lot of stuff, and I'm hoping that everything I learned will benefit me in this next part. So chapter 2 has you make a gun. Well, I'm not going to make a gun. I lost enough time with the previous chapter, so I'm going to take those concepts of photo bashing, as they called a gun, but doing it with an animatronic. And I don't quite finish this in this video, but you get an idea of what's trying to be done. Here, all the feet are, here we create a silhouette of the entire object. Then I'm going to, move around the different elements by grabbing them and resizing them until I have something I kind of like. And then once the silhouette's sort of down, we're going to start doing lots of searches online. Now, most of this video was cut because it's just me searching for content online because I have no real reference. I'm just going through Google image search, trying to find stuff that makes sense. And so don't worry, most of that's gone. Otherwise, this video would have been very, very long. So here we go. I find a piece of a car and I finally decide, okay, let's put that piece for the armbands, right? And then let's grab this piece and let's move it around. And I decide and I settle with it being part of the skirt. Now I grab this trash can and I move it around and cut out some pieces as, a midsection area. Using the warp tool to get everything right. Now I find this thing on Amazon, and I cut it up and move it together, and I decide maybe I can make some sort of a chess piece out of this. So I remove the grill because I feel like that's just too car-like. You know where it came from. Move that around. If you ever watched a movie called Inframan, it kind of looks like the shoulder pads on that. Now I need something to connect this body to the arms, and I just grab some sort of a ball, whatever the heck it is, I don't know. And I extrude these out so that we have, arm elements, and the whole thing's looking kind of interesting. Now it's time for the eyes, so we grab these little flanges and stick them in the eyes and rotate them around a little bit. Found another flange, and unfortunately my computer starts running really slow. I have to go in and change the NVIDIA settings on it because I think it was using my CPU instead of my GPU. But after I do that, everything works fine. And this creates sort of a chin area, or not chin, but jaw line. I take some speakers and I take the elements of them and stick them in there. I'm not sure how I want the teeth to be. Play around with light bulbs. That doesn't look good. And I find these interesting older elements, electronic elements. This is a capacitor, and I kind of throw it upside down and throw it on the head. I don't like it, but it's something to fill in space at the moment. Then I start finding all these Victorian era type, I don't know what you call it, filigree, detail, ornamentation. This sucks. I hate it. I absolutely dislike it, but I leave it there, and I just to kind of, test things out, to try things, see if ideas come out of it. I decide, well, maybe if I make the other elements of this using an overlay mode more interesting, it'll work. It doesn't. We grab some copper wire. Now I move it around with a warp tool. It kind of looks too much like hair, though, at that small scale, so I should probably really change that. I'd rather have it like bundles of fiber rather than, that really looks like hair. It doesn't look like copper. Find this watch, and I decide, well, I'm going ornamental with this one, so why don't we create some sort of like a headband? And I find this thing, cut out all the Shutterstock nonsense, and I use the puppet tool, the puppet warp, which is really powerful inside of Photoshop, to manipulate it to bend around that surface and to get a shape I want. And then I believe I put that little element right there, kind of blended in after that, so it has some kind of detail to it. Now I'm trying to mess with that skirt, but there's no saving it. It's trash. We're going to start looking at some other elements, and I find this this interesting lantern, and I really feel like this could become the midsection of the character. So I play around with it a bit, and it does take quite a bit of messing around before I get a shape that I like, that could work. And then I bring that in and get rid of that, chest guard plate. And I also get rid of the other skirt and turn this one on. I like this skirt a lot better at this point. It makes a little bit more sense ornamentally. And just throwing down some more pieces. Now we're going to get to the collarbone. I find this weird kind of like leg of some egg thing, and then I find this fire extinguisher, this old one, copper one, and I put that down there, and I warp that, and the puppet tool doesn't work at all for this, so I just use the standard warp tool, and I'm able to get a really good kind of leg shape and fill that in. And I kind of like what's going on with that. These different elements aren't meshing well together yet, but maybe with some more work they'll start to work out. And then I separate the different layers by using things like drop shadow and extrude, or emboss or whatnot, to just give things depth so they don't kind of feel so flat, because there's a lot going on with these shapes. Then we get to the neck, and that's pretty much as far as I get with concepting out this particular animatronic. Now, that's just the concept work that I was doing this week. Didn't get as much of it as I wanted to, but does show kind of several hours of effort. What I did instead was I spent a lot of time going over the script, and that's something I want to go over right now. So the script has been extended quite a bit. We're up to 7 pages now, and like I said, I'm only probably about 80% there, really defining the different parts and what actions happen as we play. So I thought, why don't we go through this together, and if anyone out there has any comments or ideas, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, this is pretty much what I'm going with. So we start with night 1. We already know what the overview is because we covered that in the last video. Let's go to the actual bulleted items where it explains piece by piece what's going to happen. So there's a computer screen on the wall in front of you, a mechanical part in the center. There are tools to one side on a wall that you can pick up. The screen in front of you is blinking, indicating some sort of a message needs to be played. You will then activate this screen using probably one of the controllers, and an audio connection or an audio message will pop up, and the person will say something like this. Hello, replacement. So you've taken my job and I'm supposed to get you up to speed, but no one said I had to do it well. When I started here, this place was a mess. Nothing worked. Why should it be any different for you? Someone forgot to put the tools away, and they might have removed the central core from chance. You know Chance, right? Our roulette robot. He's one of the most popular attractions here, but someone might have replaced the random number generator with a not so random one. If things stay that way for long, the arcade could lose some serious money. Not too hard, right? Open it up, replace the random generator chip, and install it back in the unit for morning operation. Heck of a lot easier than my first shift, but I'm a nice guy after all. So Chance is the animatronic that I had mentioned earlier in this video, where it's kind of a giant, bulky object that's going to just think of it like a Roomba or, a vacuum cleaner, except actually, I guess it could vacuum as well. That could be one of its functions. But it also goes around and gets in front of people and gives them a random chance. And in the arcade setting, when you're a guest, that's like fun. Oh, I could win something, or, maybe not, or something. But at night, it's I could block your path, I could chase you, I could give you something beneficial possibly. So it's just a randomized element that should change gameplay every night and make it kind of interesting. And you're introduced to that character by fixing them on your first night. So you then find a tool, not sure which one, somewhere on the desk or the shelf near the desk. Probably some sort of a wrench, or maybe something to deal with bolts. You use the tool to remove the 4 bolts on the outer surface of Chance. You remove the top portion of the device to expose a module inside. Inside of there is a spin dial. I'm imagining something vertical, where it's got maybe 3 different twisty turn things. If you spin the dial there's good, there's bad, or there's random. And when you first start it off, it's set to good, which means it's always a good outcome, which means the person always wins something positive for them. Therefore, the arcade would lose money. Then there's bad, which means, it's always going to do something negative. And there's random. You can set it to bad or random. I'm not going to choose which one you decide, but maybe that has implications later on in the game. Something you do right at the beginning could fundamentally change how this animatronic operates, or maybe even the story path later on. You then reconnect the plate, reattach the bolts. The clock beeps on the computer, signaling that your shift is over, and we fade out, and that is the end of night 1. Next up is night 2. Let's get it right to the bullet points. So, black screen, fade in text, night 2, the arcade. Scene fades in. We start once again in the repair room. You're looking at your computer monitor and desk. This is probably going to be the same thing for every night, so we're establishing, something you're used to. And by establishing something you're used to, if we want to kind of shake things up later on, maybe by night 4 or 5 or 6, we have something different that you're not expecting with the monitor. So that we're sowing the seeds of, a repetitive action. And so that later on, when we want to make the player notice something, we can make some changes. An audio message asks to be played on the computer. The player activates the computer just like before. Once again, getting you used to this system. Hey noob, it's Jen. The one who got you this job. I'm too busy to stay around till your shift, so here we are. I made a bit of a mistake and let a sorority rent the place out for a party. I figured, sorority girls, how bad could it really be? Well, I don't think cheer will ever be the same. See, what you can do with her, will ya? I think I got all her parts, but if I missed anything, make sure you take a flashlight out there with you. The place only has emergency lighting at night. Corporate has an event planned later this week, and we need cheer up and running in front of the cameras. So we're alluding to a few things here. One, you're meeting one of the first animatronics other than Chance, but Chance is kind of like, this passive randomized thing. This is one of the things you'd actually call an animatronic. That's typical. The next thing, too, is that we're sowing the seeds for that there's some event happening later this week, and it's got something big to deal with corporate. So we're going to be building towards this event. And the next thing is the pieces of the animatronic are lying around the repair room. The legs and lower torso are already on the rack. So in the concept work that I was putting together, the room had 2 docking stations to the left or the right of the repair table in front of you. And these are where the animatronics kind of get placed at night when you need to do your maintenance. So on one of them is Cheer. However, she's been completely destroyed. The torso is put on the desk. It's covered with makeup, with marker, with all kinds of stuff that these sorority sisters completely use to destroy her. So this is going to be interesting. So we got a couple of different game mechanics we need to do. We need to use cleaner to remove the filth from the torso. So you're going to have like a cleaner, an alcohol or a bottle or something like that. And you're going to need to spray it. And I'm thinking there could be a cool effect where it maybe bleeds down. Not sure how I'm going to do that yet, but that would be kind of interesting. And then you wipe it off with a towel. While cleaning, you hear a dropping sound behind you. If you check on it and turn around, the cleaner should disappear or move to another spot. This is after you're done. I want to start sewing in the creepiness factor, and by doing small changes in the room, nothing crazy jump scares, just like things are moving where you don't remember them being last. Clever players will pick up on it. Next, we're going to put the torso back on the legs and the lower torso. Next, you are instructed to fix her head, which is missing the LEDs. Put the LEDs one at a time. After the first LED, another sound can be heard. Some object in the room has moved if the player notices what's going on. Once again, small little things. The player puts the head on the body and screws it into place. The eyes light up a nice blue color. And this is something that I'm not sure of at this moment, but I want the bots to have 2 operating modes. Because when we get later on, as you'll see, it's important to be able to identify whether or not an animatronic is functioning or not functioning through sight. And doing a nice blue might mean that they're nice, and going, of course, stereotypical red or something could indicate that they're malfunctioning. Maybe we'll do something more interesting like a purple color. I'm not sure. The player grabs one of the arms, and upon attaching it, the eyes fire up red, back and forth, and then die down to blue. So something freaky kind of happened there. The player searches around the room for the last arm, and it's halfway out the hallway door, leaving your repair room. As you approach the arm, it quickly gets pulled away into the hallway with a skittering sound. The hallway is super dark, so you're going to have to get your flashlight to look around. I'm guessing if you don't get your flashlight, you're just going to get killed. No explanation. You're just going to go out there, and after a few moments, things will get kind of dramatic. Maybe some music will play or something, and then you're dead. How to use the flashlight maybe should be printed on the object. I'm trying to think about how I'm going to communicate features to the player in a logical way, and putting the instructions on the object might be the way to go. Shouldn't be too complicated. Walk into the hallway. Before you is a semi-glass door, so you can see through it, barring you from the arcade area. The passive neon lights inside of the arcade provide a little bit of illumination behind the door, so you can kind of make out some shapes, but nothing major. You'll need to unlock the door with your ratchet wrench or other tool that you used in the prior night, and the doors will then kind of part slightly open, and then you'll be able to either manually pull them apart or they'll automatically open after that. As you walk through the halls of the arcade games, 1 or 2 might try to jump scare you, really cheap jump scares, just to get back to the roots of these kind of games. We're not trying to be too serious with this. We're just, every now and then we want to throw something at the player. Work your way to the kiddie bowling lane. The arm is at the end of the lane, and by kiddie bowling lane, I imagine that it's got those big inflatable things covering up the pockets on the left and the right, so that the ball can't go down them. And it's probably got some like netting on the side, so you're completely trapped into this lane. And when you go down the lane to pick up the arm at the end of it, the lane resets automatically. That is, the pins behind it just fall down, smash down, or the arm comes down and smashes the bowling pins down, and everything gets knocked over. Turning around, you see Orphan at the opposite end of the lane now, and it has begun its cleaning mode. That might not sound too intimidating, but we're going to try to make it intimidating in some way. Not only is it cleaning the lanes below you, because you might just say, well, Orphan didn't look too tall, why couldn't it just jump? Well, I'm trying to think of something that it does as it goes down there that might be a little bit menacing. I'm not sure what yet. He begins to clean the lane coming towards you. You can't get out of the lane because there are nets to the sides of you. You have to go through the bowling pin area, back to the maintenance area to work where you worked, to reattach the arm. And then once you've reattached the arm, the night then ends. Next up is night 3. We fade from a black screen into the repair room. Once again, we have that familiar computer terminal prompting you to click a recorded audio file. This time it's Georgie, the teenager who takes care of the bowling lanes. Testing. Hey, it's Georgie. I run the bowling lanes during the day. We had a pretty crazy day today. Not sure when it did it, but the repair bot scuffed the heck out of the kids' lanes. We need Orphan serviced and topped off with oil for fixing the lanes tomorrow morning. Boss says we have 3 birthday parties, and they want the kitty lanes, all of them. I left Orphan in your robot dock. You'll need to check its logic circuits in the head. Change out the oil scrubber on the face and fill it with some oil. So Orphan is located to the right, I'm guessing, or the left, it doesn't matter, standing in its erect mode. The player detaches the head and brings it into their station. The player has a handheld unit that gives vague instructions on what to do next. This is going to help you move forward in these different tasks because it doesn't make sense to have some of these people explain the task. I mean, you're hired to be the repair person, so the expectation is you know how to do some of these things, but you're also a player who doesn't know how to do anything. So we've got to kind of bridge that gap by giving you some sort of an instrument that helps guide you vaguely through what you're supposed to do. So the player rips off the bottom oil scrubber on the face and places on a new one. The scrubber turns on momentarily when either removing the scrubber to scare the player or reattaching it. Nothing happens when you place the new one on though, so you're kind of expected for it to do something at that point, but it doesn't. The player turns the face around and pops it off, so the face was that circular element and it gets twisted and pulled right off, revealing the internal components. You plug in your handheld unit to the port in the center of the face and activate the probe. One of the old bulbs for the eyes and just explodes. Bright light, smoke bursting out, a little bit of electric discharge, so something that's not good. You pull out the circuit board attached to the now broken eye. That's that board that I drew in the concept stuff. You plug it into the handheld data unit device. You press refresh drivers and let the load bar finish. Handheld unit blinks, some sort of like pixelated sad face, bing, 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 ding, and then a happy face after that to indicate that it's working, something very simple that anyone can understand. You pull out the second bulb board. It appears to only be corroded with oil, so something kind of got nasty, messed up in there. You plug it in and you see a mean face on the handheld unit. Once again, no idea what this actually means, but we don't really need to think about this technology-wise too deeply. It's a mean face, something bad is there. It blinks back and forth between mean and happy until finally clicking onto happy, in which case you're going to place the boards back in the head, put the faceplate back on, turn it around, the LEDs light up momentarily when connected, and then place the head back on the body. Now, I think I forgot to mention that you should have replaced the broken LED, but whatever, we'll get to that. Get the hose from the oil barrel and plug it into the side of the unit or the back, somewhere where you have to get kind of close to it, up in its face, so that you're very, very near it in case we want to scare you for whatever reason. You turn on the pump and wait while it turns oil into the unit. A cyclic pumping sound keeps going in the background like a whoa, 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 whoa. And while this repetitive sound keeps happening, you start hearing some sort of a beep off in the distance. The player is expected to follow the beeping through the area into the bathroom, where there is a nearly closed stall with a blinking light behind it. So it's a very dark room and you have this blink and maybe a shadow, shadow with like legs or something on the ground. And this is where I wasn't sure where I wanted to take this game. When I first was writing it, I was thinking, do we put a dead person in there, a dead body? But then at the same time, I'm thinking, well, we're trying to keep this, PG-ish, not too crazy, nasty out there. I'd like it to be a game my kids could play. So I decided, no, we're not going to go with the dead body route. It's too much too early, not right now. So you open the door and it's Cheer, slumped down, sitting on the toilet in the stall. The head rises up, the mouth opens, and a very deep, disturbing sound slowly rises, repetitive and synthetic. Cheer begins to rise from the toilet in a very unnatural way, where the hips, the legs, from the bottom up, where the feet, the knees, the hips, the central body, then the arms, then finally the head kind of comes back up bit by bit each time. Cheer begins to go after the player, who needs to get back to the repair room, obviously because you have a job to do. You should never have been doing this to begin with. They can optionally, if you want to, close the bathroom door on your way out if you have the time and you think about it, in which case Cheer just starts pounding on the door. Now at this point, there's really nothing else for you to do. You need to go back to the repair room. When the player returns, the oil tank is full, possibly overfilling at this point with it pouring down the side of Orphan. When you turn it off and remove the hose, Orphan comes to life, knocks you over, and leaves the room. Scene fades to black while you're on your butt looking out the exit where Orphan left. End night 3. I'm not a huge fan of ending the nights where you kind of get knocked on your butt or knocked out, because What happened? Who woke up and found you that way? Did you just wake up and leave? Why aren't you doing anything? But it's also a very easy stereotype, a trope that I can use over and over and over again to just kind of explain our progression from the previous night to the next night. So we're just going to go with it for now. If we come up with a better solution, so be it. Fade into the repair room once again. The computer has an audio file to play. So now we've established that 4 nights in a row, this is what you expect to do. The audio file is from Jen again, and she's pissed, saying, "What the heck happened last night? We found Cheer locked in a bathroom and Orphan was trying to wax the laser tag room. None of the lanes were prepped for birthday parties. When Bill was here, nothing like this ever happened." Listen, this is important. I need you to update Pickle to say the company's new catchphrase. Pickle is our greeter at the front door. I'm hearing rumors that corporate is planning some grand rebranding and our store is ground zero for testing these changes. Having Pickle already primed with their new message will go a long way into getting some recognition. So please, get this done for me tonight. Pickle is in the right animatronic dock. This time, Cheer, for no apparent reason, is in the left dock. You use your little handheld tool to guide you to do what needs to be done with Pickle. Pickle opens up. We don't have any concept work of Pickle yet. I haven't gotten to that. But it's a big ass pickle. And it's probably, maybe it separates down the center. Like the whole thing just kind of separates into two. And then inside is its core. You pull out the module and place it on the desk. As you do this, Cheer will have changed position. And now she's like staring at the player who has just done this. When you plug in the cable to update the firmware, all the power flashes and goes out, emergency lights come on, an automated message from the computer at your desk says, "Power failure detected, emergency lighting enabled, check breaker room, backup power failing, system shutting down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, monitor cuts out." The idea is maybe you had like an emergency power unit below that computer that only had maybe 30 seconds of power, something ridiculously low, to give you that message, let you know enough to move forward, and then cut out so you can't use it for anything else. In the power outage, Cheer has now disappeared from the side dock. Pickle is still there because you have disassembled it. It's not going anywhere. Orphan is probably busy scrubbing the lanes if you happen to wander out to the bowling alley area. At this point, Orphan is going to completely ignore you and hums some sort of a robotic tune. The player makes their way to the breaker room, which is not too far spatially. We have to figure that one out, but it shouldn't be very far away. I don't want that to take time. You open the breaker box and find that the breakers are missing. You notice that there is oil on the box and the floor, hint, hint from previous night. This is going to be very apparent. I'm not going to make this a subtle thing. You should be able to understand that Orphan probably had something to do with this. The player needs to wander around looking at the oil stains to guide them. As the player leaves rooms, Cheer should be seen in the distance as if following. There isn't any direct chasing yet. It's just meant to scare the player and move them along. In the receiving area is a trash compactor. The door has oil on the handle. The player opens and enters the machine. In the center is the breaker. When the player gets to it, they hear a closing sound and a bang. If they look quickly enough, it'll see the outline of Cheer, not Orphan this time. The walls start to close in. So the idea here is that maybe these animatronics are working together in concert some way, because you think it's Orphan probably moving the breakers around, but Cheer seems to be the one now closing you in. Doesn't really matter that much, just adds a little something to it. The player must get to the panel on the back and unscrew the bolts quickly to escape alive. If you don't do it in time, you die. If you do open it up, you then bang hard on the panel. The idea is that these things are closing in on you. They're really close to killing you at this point. And then you bang, and last minute it gives away. The player falls out. Once again, we do the stupid blurred vision, fade out to black, night 4 ends, just as a way to move us on to the next part of the story. If we come up with a better concept of what you're supposed to do after you escape these circumstances, then so be it. Night 5. So fade into the repair room again. A note this time is on the desk with a big red stamp on it saying charges occurred for failure to do what was asking, some sort of this is a bill because you screwed up. Written on the board in front of you on the wall in Sharpie is fix Pickles or you're fired, since you didn't get the chance to do it last night. This time, there's no audio message this night. That's going to be something different than the previous night. So we're changing things up a little bit. You pissed off everyone, so no one wants to bother with you. Pickles is as you left him. Cheer is not present. On your desk is still Pickles' core. Your handheld helper is blinking. It says Pickle Protocol or something on the screen. You connect wires at the correct time. There are 3 holes with 3 LEDs above them in Pickles, and you have 2 wires, one in each hand. One wire is green, the other is red. The lights will light up, and you need to attach the correct wire to the correct light at the right time. A central light above it will blink, and a sound getting louder will happen, and then it will go solid, indicating that data is being transmitted. So you've got to put these into different ports at the right time while it's transmitting the data. It will blink again. The holes and wires will change. Do this 3 times, with each time getting faster. If you mess it up, you must start all over, as the display will say firmware corrupted or something like that. Please try it again. And once again, this is a mechanic that we might introduce on the last night, where there's going to be a lot of tension. You're trying to escape, and you've got to do this stupid wire game to get out of something. We put Pickle's module back in the body and close it up. You get a crackling sound from the radio next to the desk. A security guard can be heard, although it is quite garbled. Hey, night shift, you there? Hello, anyone there? Listen, this is Alex in mall security. Look, your security cameras have gone out from our feed. Last time this happened, the tech guy said to just reset the server or something. I'm stuck on the John for the foreseeable future, watching the feed on my phone. Would you mind resetting things for me? Here, let me tell you the IP address and port so you can see if it works for yourself. Then he gives you this bogus one that I found online, 192.168.1.108, port 37777, password is LEET. Player uses their tablet to switch between security feeds. Currently, it's all noise. I know noise doesn't make sense in digital world, so maybe it's an encoding visual error where, red and blue channels being all kind of messed up like you see in a lot of things these days. I'm not sure. Or maybe the cameras are analog and the output then gets converted to digital, which does happen with some camera systems. While the player was busy looking at the screen or away from Pickle, it has magically disappeared from its post. Now we have Pickle and Cheer to worry about, and maybe Orphan as well. The server is stored in the manager's office, which should be as far away as possible from the repair room, as it will make the return trip more difficult. Getting there should be easy and uneventful. After resetting the server, the tablet comes to life that you have and shows the different cameras. However, in front of all the cameras are the animatronics, very, very, very close up, with their eyes glowing red, or some kind of indication that they are bad. They are not operating properly, whether that's their stature, their stance, or this glowing element that we're not quite sure of. I don't know yet. The animatronics need some sign that they are improperly operating. As I mentioned before, maybe blue to red or purple or something, I'm not sure. You now need to get back to the repair room. So the question that I'm left with, and this is where, I said I have like 80% of this done. This is where the questions start popping and I'm not sure about yet. Why do you need to get back to the repair room? Why can't you hold up in the manager's office? So we need to plant something at the beginning of this night or in a previous night with why you have to be in the repair room and why you can't just stay in the manager's office. We need a reason to get you out there and get back. Maybe you forgot something. Maybe you have to get something from that location. Maybe you have to tell the security guard something. Maybe you forgot the radio. Maybe that's it. Something along those lines. Night 6. We now have a tablet that can render out the security feed. Whether or not this is a separate object or this is just more functionality of your handheld unit, I'm not sure yet. I don't want to have too many different elements. So if the tablet instead is both a tablet and a handheld unit to diagnose things, then great, let's go with that. You can now render out the security feed so we can see what is happening in the building. Stream, the new and final animatronic, has arrived, and you need to unpack and set up the unit. So let's go we fade into the repair room. Stream is in the right bay. Stream is a very advanced robot and should be incredibly complicated. It should fold apart and come together and give off futuristic sci-fi vibes compared to all the other stuff we worked with. The unit has annoying narration coming from it that explains everything you should do to set up through the unit. It should all be counterintuitive and complicated and frustrating, and it should make the player really have a hard time, because what you have to do is get this animatronic up and running and operational while watching out for all these other animatronics that are now roaming around using your security camera pad. So now we've gotten really into the classic FNAF gameplay with this one. And of course, all you got to do is get through all of the procedures and not get caught. Once again, this night 6, you've noticed I don't have nearly as much written down as the other ones. And actually, night 7, you'll notice I haven't even broken this one down, but let's talk about it a little bit. So this is the final night. You have to escape from the arcade room. Things just are going to have to go wrong right at the beginning. It's going to be Orphan, Stream, Cheer, Chance, Pickle, all out there doing their things. You look at the security feed, stuff goes bad. Stream is messing with all the stuff going on, and you feel threatened and you have to get out. And that's pretty much where we are right now with the storyline. Like I said, we've got most of it done. We've got a lot of it really well detailed, so I know exactly what I need to do, what features I have to have. Just maybe another day of really finalizing those last 2 nights and going back and trying to insert elements of the later levels into the earlier levels so that there's, it makes sense, that there's, a continuum in this whole narrative. And yeah, that's the extent of the work that's gone into this week. Over the next week, I hopefully will finalize this entire story, have a lot more concept done. I'd like to have all the animatronics completely concepted out with an idea of what their design is. Just so you understand, the concept work is just to get ideas. I'm not saying it's going to be exactly how it looks at the end. It's just so that I can try different things and see what's going to happen. I might really change them up, or maybe I'll take a piece of one of the concepts and then retool the animatronic to take after that. For instance, the cheer one that I had this week had a lot of dissimilar elements. Whether that's the lantern in the center or the kind of copper or brass fire metal plates for the legs and arms and so forth. Each of those was very different. I might go back in, take those elements and retool it to follow in that, that style, that theme. So that's what we plan on doing, is having everything hopefully cohesively understood, the storyline and the general idea of how everything will look and the layout for video 200 in the series. I'll see you all then. So long and goodbye.